Chapter 8. Shopping Tour. Every autumn, Mother took the boys into New York on a shopping trip to get them clothes for the coming year. This year, to save time, she decided to get the shopping out of the way as soon as we passed through the city, en route from Nantucket to Montclair. The trip to New York was accomplished relatively painlessly. Anne took the girls, including a moon-eyed Ernestine, who almost had to be led by the hand onto Montclair. Then Mother and the boys headed for a department store which was featuring a back-to-school sale. Mother believed that self-expression was essential to a child's development, and always gave a free hand in picking her clothes. She might advise, but she never vetoed. Before leaving Nantucket, Ernestine, as chairman of the purchasing committee, had inventoried the condition of the boys' clothes and had given Mother a list of requirements. It was decided that each boy would get one new suit, and would be handed down a suit from the brother immediately above him in the age scale. Frank, being the oldest and not in line for a hand-down, would get 2 new suits. New shirts, ties, socks, underwear, and shoes, which seldom lasted long enough to be handed down, also were needed by all the boys. Frank was in Montclair with Tom, so he was not included on the shopping trip. Mother thought that being 13, he was old enough to get his own clothes anyway. In the subway on the way uptown from Barclay Street, the boys agreed that any suit bought would have to please not only its immediate possessor, but the next brother also, who would be its ultimate owner. It was still early when they arrived at the store, and the boys' department was nearly deserted. A middle-aged salesman, pleased at the prospect of starting the day with such a huge group of potential customers, hurried up to Mother. He was precise, plump, and wore a hearing aid, which fitted over his head, earphones fashion. "Hello there, fellows," he said heartily, in a tone designed to show he was nothing but a great big boy himself. "Well, school's about to start, huh? I know you're all looking forward to it." He laughed and rumpled Bob's head, and Bob hid behind Mother. "What'll it be this morning?" the salesman asked Mother hopefully. "Suits for all the boys?" "Yes, please," said Mother, while the salesman, obviously figuring that this was his lucky day, beamed happily. Mother reached into her briefcase-sized pocketbook, pulled out 2 blueprints, the first draft of a speech she was writing, a copy of the magazine from Iron Age, a shawl she was crocheting for her mother, some socks she had darned on the boat, and finally her black notebook. There is never anything very efficient about Mother's pocketbook. "Let's see," she said, reading from Ernestine's list. 5 suits, 15 neckties, 20 suits of underwear, 25 pairs of socks, 20 shirts, and 5 pairs of shoes. "Yes, madam," smiled the salesman. It was a big, sincere smile, which was fortunate, because it was his last until the boys departed, and possibly his last for a matter of weeks. "Do they let him play the radio when he's supposed to be working?" Dan asked Mother. "It's not a radio, dear," said Mother, who was embarrassed but believed in answering all questions from the floor. "It's a hearing aid, so of course it's not polite to talk about it." "Oh, I'm sorry," said Dan, and then whispering, "What's a hearing aid?" "He's a little deaf, dear," Mother whispered back, "so don't say anything more about it." "What did she say?" Fred and Jack whispered to Dan. "Deaf as a doornail," Dan whispered back. "Don't make him feel bad." "If you fellows will step this way," said the salesman, "I think you can find you something." "We don't want to pay more than $17.50 for the suits," said Bill, who had been coached by the girls. "And we want them with 2 pairs of knickers." Fred nudged Bill and whispered, "Deaf." "We don't want to pay more than $17.50 for the suits," Bill shouted as loud as he could. "I know you don't, Sonny," the salesman said patiently. "I heard you. You really don't have to shout." "I'm sorry," said Bill, glaring at Fred. "Look, fellows," the man said, "it's all right about the hearing aids. Lots of boys ask about them. I'm going to show you how it works." He explained that he kept dry cell batteries in his hip pocket and showed the boys the volume control rheostat in the side pocket of his coat. "All right, now let's get down to business, fellows," he said, swinging out a rack of clothes. He turned to Mother. "We have a special sale on this group, madam." "How much?" said Bill. "They've been marked down from 30, the salesman continued, ignoring Bill. "They're a real buy, madam." "How much?" said Bill. "They're $19.50, he admitted, glaring. "I'm afraid it's too much, sir," Bill said. "We want something cheaper." "I don't know, dear," Mother put in. "We might look at them and see whether you like them." "We don't like them," Bill shook his head. "Ernestine might not object too much, but Martha will holler. She made us promise. Well, I guess you're right, Mother agreed. Ernestine? Asked the salesman. Martha? Ern's chairman of the purchasing committee, and Mart's in charge of the budget, Bill told him. I see, said the salesman, who obviously didn't, but thought it best not to pursue the subject any further. He pulled out another rack. They are $17, he said, marked down from 25. What colors did you have in mind, madam? I think we'll let the boys pick 'em out, Mother smiled. If you don't mind, would you be good enough to start with Bill? He's the biggest, the blonde. What color do you have in mind, young man? I don't think the color will matter, Bill said. What kind of cloth, then? I don't care about that either. I want the kind that has buckles on the bottom of the knickers that'll keep your stockings up. The salesman looked in mute appeal at Mother, who had found a chair and was busy working on her crocheting. That seems sensible, dear, she said without looking up. The legs of your last pair wouldn't stay up at all, would they? The points on the buckle bent out of shape the first week, Bill complained. Worst suit I ever had. Bill went through the rack, tried on 3 or 4 suits that didn't pass the buckle test, and at last found a gray belted model that seemed just right. I like this one, he said, turning around so Mother could see whether it fit. It fits him almost exactly, said the salesman, who was beginning to perspire a little from taking down suits and hanging them up. Mother felt the material. I think it's fine, dear. It should be wear well, and it seems well made. It's mighty handsome, too. The salesman was obviously relieved. Shall I have it wrapped, he asked. Not just yet, Bill told him. Is it all right with you, Fred? Fred came over, looked at it, felt it, and studied the buckles. Okay with me, Fred agreed. Does everybody have to approve it? Asked the salesman, who was becoming a little bewildered. Are we going to have a vote on each suit? He appealed to Mother. Oh, no, Mother assured him. Just this little fellow here? The salesman asked, pointing to Fred. Is he the one who's going to approve all of them? Well, not exactly, said Mother. It's just that the boys agreed that Fred would have to approve Bill's suit, Dan would have to approve Fred's, and Jack... Yes, the clerk interrupted, looking around him furtively. Of course, I see. By the time the suits had been selected, the boys' department was beginning to take on the appearance of a firehouse dormitory. Coats, pants, and vests, many of them in positions just as the boys had wriggled out of them, were on chairs, tables, hooks, and the floor. The clothes racks were as cold and gaping as a turkey roast on Thanksgiving Day. The clerk, now perspiring freely, led the boys to the underwear counter, where Mother found another chair. We can pay $1 a pair, Bill told them. What color? Asked the salesman, who knew better now than to haggle over the price. You don't have to worry about that, said Bill. The only thing we don't want is what Tom calls Indian drawers. Don't be Eskimo, Mother warned. Eskimo was Mother's word for anything that was deemed evil-minded. She seldom seemed to miss a reference. The kind that creeps up on you. The salesman nodded morosely. I'm dying laughing. He pulled out some boxes. Now let's see. Less than $1, any color, no Indian drawers. This has been, if I may say so, quite a unique experience. If there's anything I hate, it's drawers like that, don't you, Mother? Dan said. You can hardly sit still in them. I think, smiled Mother, burrowing her head in crocheting, you better pay attention to what the gentleman is showing you. The underwear finally selected was on special sale and was produced for inspection only after all the other brands had been rejected as having Indian characteristics. These are just what we want, Bill said when the specially priced goods were brought out from under a counter. We'll take 20 pairs of them, please. Mother has the sizes. Only 3 to a customer, the salesman shook his head. We'll lose money on every one of them. We sell at that price. We certainly don't want to hurt your business, Bill agreed. Since there are only 6 of us, I guess we can take 18 pairs then. The clerk, now beginning to walk as if in a trance, got the sizes from Mother and added the underwear to the growing pile of merchandise. So to save time, he said, as we arrived at the shoe counter, and to save me the trouble of showing you every shoe in the store, suppose you explain to me in detail, beforehand, just what it is you want in a shoe. Well, the first one who says a foot, Bill warned the other boys, is going to have trouble with me. I think we're taking up too much of this man's time. I don't suppose, the salesman ignored him, that what you'd want is what everybody else gets for their boys, a high black shoe that wears well. Yes, Bill nodded, I think that's just what we do want. I thought maybe you didn't care about the color or whether it was high or low, just as long as the eyelets didn't rust and the laces were genuine Western cowhide. Do you have any with laces like that? Fred asked eagerly. No, the clerk yelled. We don't. And I don't know whether our eyelets rust or not. Fred was subdued. Funny store, he whispered. They try to sell you things they haven't even got. There was a good deal of bickering, but the boys finally decided on the shoes, the shirts, the ties, and the socks. I guess it's been trying for you, Mother told the salesman sincerely as she paid the bill. But I think that buying is an important part of every child's education, don't you? What's that? He said, fumbling in his side pocket for the hearing aid switch. I had it turned off. I can hear you now. I couldn't stand to listen any more. You mean, Mother asked, and the boys thought there was a trace of envy in her voice, that all you have to do is turn a switch and you can't hear anything at all? He nodded. It's wonderful what science can do, Mother said, and there was no doubt about it. It was envy.